Well, a veteran may lose his home all because of an American flag in his flower pot. A Florida Homeowners Association has declared only plants are allowed in flower pots, and they fined him more than $8,000. If he doesn't pay up, they could foreclose on his home.
They said it's an unauthorized object going in a flower pot.
And you felt what about that?
Well, I feel very strongly about the American flag. There's people that are still fighting wars and strapping on guns to protect me and the people I love.
So currently you are being fined for having an American flag in a flower pot, $8,000 so much you owe, that if you do not pay this because you want to have the American flag proudly displayed in your flower pot, what will happen to you?
They will file a foreclosure lien to take my house.
If you've looked around the streets of your own hometown and maybe you've seen stuff that looks like it came out of a war zone, well, get used to it. A new report by the ACLU finds that police forces throughout the U.S. are arming their law enforcement agents with weapons and tactics of war.
Weapons and equipment that's specifically designed for the war zone is flooding into local police, and so when they have it, they're going to want to use it. When police officers are looking like soldiers, acting like soldiers, they're going to start to see everyone around them as an enemy instead of people to protect and to serve. And so that sort of keeps the cycle going of violence. And what we've seen is that specifically through this 1033 program, which that's the Department of Defense program that transfers weapons and vehicles and all this equipment to police departments for free, this is reaching every state. All 50 states, 4 U.S. territories, almost $5 billion worth of equipment has been handed out since this program was enacted. We see that no one is really safe from this.
Video we rarely see, Fort Worth police on camera raiding a drug house. But tonight, a family says this video raises questions about the death of a man inside. Police used a taser on Jermaine Darton during that raid last May. He died, records show, of natural causes. But his family says his civil rights were violated.
Like a lot of drug raids, police bust in without a lot of notice. But for the man in the white tank top, things go from bad to worse quickly.
Stop moving!
Fort Worth officers suddenly deployed tasers, striking Jermaine Darton twice, moments after coming in. Here it is from another officer's camera angle.
Even now when I watch it, I break down because I don't see where there was a reason for him to die.
Darton's sister says the police video shows what their family suspected all along. The man who suffered from asthma was roughed up by officers for no justifiable reason. There also was a delay in getting paramedics to the scene.
We don't have an active call there.
A MedStar crew stationed only a mile away had to be requested 3 times. Police did find drugs at the scene and kids in the house, but Darton's family says despite that evidence, the camera footage itself is evidence there was no need for him to die.
A newly released report from the ACLU claims police departments across the country, including here in New Mexico, are acting too much like the military. The report calls out police for using military gear and SWAT crews in situations that don't require them.
I think New Mexico is just reflective of the trends that we're seeing nationally.
For ACLU New Mexico's director Peter Simonson, the lines have blurred between wars overseas and police forces on the streets at home. Police departments in New Mexico and across the U.S. have become more aggressive, particularly with SWAT teams. Simonson says departments have also increasingly become geared up with U.S. military equipment.
An Indiana woman accusing police of excessive force now, and surveillance video right here caught the whole incident on camera. Tabitha Gentry says police forcibly stripped her after an arrest for a misdemeanor. So you can see they left her naked in a jail cell for hours. Gentry says the officers pepper sprayed her through the door when she yelled for clothes, and then they completely humiliated her, forcing her to walk through the jail naked.
She was forced to the ground. Her clothes were forcibly pulled off her body by both male and female officers, and then she was left naked in this cell for 7 hours.
I know that officers sometimes perform a cavity search, so they need to take off clothes, but it's your understanding that that was not necessary in this case, right?
There was no cavity search. There was no search at all. This was a humiliation tactic.
This appalling story that he reported on yesterday was picked up by Drudge, a woman who was forced to strip naked at gunpoint during a terrifying SWAT raid. This is Homeland Security coming into her home, and of course, as usual, we don't get any explanation as to why they did this.
Well, this is basically a couple in Florida. They were the victims of a dawn raid on their home by both police and DHS agents. They basically burst into the house at 6 a.m. The couple were in the shower. They just got out of the shower, so they were wrapped in towels. So you had basically a naked woman being forced onto the ground at gunpoint. And after that, they spent 2 hours trashing their house. Said apparently they were looking for electronics and laptops. She described it as, quote, 2 hours of pure hell. They trashed the house and left again. DHS itself is turning into this kind of national police force, this standing army that is increasingly becoming outside of the law.
How about this idea? Taxed for the miles you drive? More than a dozen states are considering charging drivers based on just how many miles they drive. Our national correspondent Christine Frazao takes a look at what this means in the future for everyone.
It's called a VMT tax, for vehicle miles traveled. Soon, thousands of volunteers in Oregon will have mileage meters installed in their cars. And at least 18 other states are considering the program. Instead of a toll, it would act like a user fee. The more you drive on the road, the more taxes you would pay. Dan Mitchell is an economist and senior fellow at the Cato Institute. He says the other major issue is privacy. A GPS monitor in your car could record not only how many miles you drive, but where you go and when. Mitchell warns it could be a slippery slope.
But first, your privacy could be on the line as aerial drones with cameras become more popular. I'm Marnie Hughes.
And I'm David Rose. A Seattle woman found that out the hard way this weekend when she saw one hovering right outside her window, 26 floors up.
It was 7:45 Sunday morning and Lisa Pleiss was fresh out of bed. She saw something strange hovering outside.
And it was actually quite large. I could tell, or it appeared that there was video cameras on it. So that's what kind of caused me alarm because I wasn't particularly dressed for a camera. And I went back out and looked and went to grab my camera, and then it like swooped away super fast.
Pleiss was able to snap this picture of the drone.
You're already getting a great amount of these out there, and the safety is going to start to become an issue, along with legalities of people looking at their neighbors, spying on things.
To combat the problem of impaired driving on the 4th of July weekend, police are turning to a new tool to deter drivers from driving drunk.
The latest law enforcement strategy is called no refusal. Now, what this means is if you're pulled over by police for impaired driving and refuse a breath test, police can take you down to the station and draw your blood, no questions asked. In the past, Eugene police officer Ryan Stone says if someone was pulled over under the suspicion of driving while intoxicated, one could refuse a breath test, but would face fines and a year-long suspension of their license. Under no refusal, Stone says police will be able to file for a search warrant through an on-call judge and draw blood at the station. But not everyone is comfortable with this new practice.
And it's no secret Detroit was hit hard during the recession. Now, some of the poorest residents are facing yet another crisis: no water. So far, more than 3,000 people have had their water turned off. So they've decided to appeal to the United Nations. 4 groups submitted a request to the UN Special Rapporteur this week. It details the problem in Detroit and calls for the UN's help. They're urging the UN to work with the state of Michigan and the U.S. government to stop the shutoffs and restore service and make water accessible and affordable.
As federal agencies stand down to what can only be described as a total collapse of our borders, the United Nations is preparing for a massive civil breakdown right here in the U.S. And they have accelerated their plan for global gun confiscation after the imminent collapse of our country, even going so far as posting job offers for commanders who will be trained to seize guns, and I quote, from the civilian population. Oh man, we've been warning you about this for a long time. We've shown you the official documents. I mean, this is what the UN does. They've done it worldwide, and I guess they think we are next. A posting on the United Nations Career Opportunities page announces a vacancy for the position of Disarmament, Demobilization, and Reintegration Officer under the UN's Department of Peacekeeping Operations in New York. So they plan to use the border collapse to bring down this country and usher in martial law.
Here in Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas, riding down 183, we've got armored UN vehicles.
We've all heard of preemptive strikes, but what about preemptive prosecutions? Muslims in the U.S. are outraged by what appears to be America's latest tactic in its war on terror, entrapping people it suspects might plan terrorist acts in the future. Marina Portnoy explains how almost 95% of convictions for this crime are the result of FBI provocations.
The FBI used an agent provocateur to recruit vulnerable individuals, luring them with cash and coercing them into carrying out a terrorist attack that was set up by the FBI.
It seems like politicians know an awful lot about potential strikes here on U.S. soil, whether it's Lindsey Graham talking about how nukes could potentially go off in South Carolina. So you go from guys like Lindsey Graham talking about this to Obama, and he said that his biggest concern is that a nuke could go off in New York City. And it's not just nuke concerns. We have Senator Feinstein coming out and saying that there will be plots to kill Americans.
So this is where I think we need to build our intelligence to see that we can disrupt a plot in this country before it happens, because there will be plots to kill Americans.
One of the things I worried about 12 years ago and that I worry about today is that there will be another 9/11 attack, and that the next time it'll be with weapons far deadlier than airline tickets and box cutters.